Welcome back to Richo Hobby and Art. This is the part 5 of our look at classic pocket knives. These are my modern knives, ones that are within, I don't know, they go back to about the 1980s. So for some of you that may not be modern, but for me it is. This first one, this Deluxe Unlimited, this is it's an Imperial, Ireland made penknife. What I would call, as I've called in some of my previous videos, a promotional knife. So Imperial would have made the knife, and then they stamped the Deluxe Unlimited on there. It had to do with wetlands conservation. I saw a lot of Deluxe Unlimited when I was a kid, growing up in, let's say, suburban DC, Baltimore area of Maryland. And so that's where I saw a lot of this kind of thing. I got this particular knife at a workplace. Again, nobody claimed it, so I just took it. It's not stealing, it's just I asked, they said it didn't belong to anybody, so they let me have it. That's usually how that works. This next one, this is a fire knife, or at least that's what it was marketed as. It was back when I was a firefighter. If you saw the fire patch video, you'll remember that. Back when I was a firefighter, I bought this out of Firehouse magazine, and it has the lanyard, big lanyard. I would call this an electrician's knife, but they call it a fire knife. Who knows? It's from the Colonial Knife Company, Providence, USC. This blade was supposed to be something that you could cut seat belts with, or something like that. To be honest with you, this was never very sharp. It's not sharp now, it's very dull, but even when I bought it, I didn't think it would cut much more than, I don't know, cheese. That's just my opinion. The best blade on here was this next blade. This is why I call it an electrician's knife, because it's got that electrician's blade where you have that slotted screwdriver and the wire stripper kind of edge, and this is sharp. Even all these years later, it's sharp. So I don't know. I think they were just trying to sell a cheap knife. And I'm not saying that the maker of this knife is cheap. I'll tell you what I use this for, and you can probably figure it out from looking at it. Back when I was a firefighter, I was also doing landscape, and I'm not talking the kind of landscape you see today with guys on the zero-turn lawn machine, stuff like that. I'm talking about the kind of thing where you're on the side of a hill tearing out someone's ivy, or tearing out ivy in someone's front yard, that kind of stuff. And so this was used for removing weeds, and that might be horrifying to many of you, but it's got the nicks and scratches from hitting pavement, concrete, pavers, all that kind of stuff. You know, maybe I opened some boxes with it or something, but this was very useful for me in doing some of that landscape work, yard work, whatever you want to call it. And so that's what I ended up using it for, not for rescuing people. You know, when I was in the fire department, they had really good tools and equipment for doing that kind of stuff, and you wouldn't be needing a pocket knife for that. That's just me. Many of you may recognize this right away. It's a buck knife. It's the only buck knife I have. It's big, to me, compared to the pocket knives I have, this is a really big knife. But, and it's in, you know, except for the brass kind of fading a little bit, it's in pretty good condition. Because I'm not really a buck knife kind of guy, so I'm going to not use it. It is as sharp as it came from the factory, I will say that. It does come with, I've got it somewhere else, but I've got that little sheet of paper that shows its authentication number, and I mean, it is a buck as bucks come. It does have my initials on it here. This was a wedding gift, or a gift at a wedding. And they put the date of the wedding on here, August 9th, 2003. So, a beautiful knife. And that, again, just like that knife that I showed in part 3 of the small knives, that, you know, that means that the person that bought this had to buy, well, he bought like 2 or, let's say 4 or 5 of these things and put each of our initials on it. So, I mean, I don't know how that goes, how much that costs extra, but to me that's something special. You can see that there is a little corrosion on the brass. That's not really a big thing. You know, being a conservator, I have the stuff for cleaning that, but because it's kept in its case, you know, and this is a good solid leather case with the belt loop on the back, in very good condition. I mean, this is pure buck material here. I assume there are knockoffs. I really don't know. Some of you who watch these videos probably know about knockoffs, but this is the real deal, and I have treated it as such all these years, keeping it in its case, in the drawer. Because, I mean, I don't hunt, I don't do a lot of that kind of things, and so it's just, you just want to keep some things in good condition, and that's what I've done here. All right, for the next part, we're going to talk about the Victorinox Swiss Army knives. I have several. Start off with, here's a catalog that I have from, let's say the early 2000s that show, there's the Swiss Champ, which was their top of the line for many, many years. It's just a catalog of all the different Swiss Army knives that they sold. Now, this was recently, well, not recently, like I said, about 20 years ago. There you see some of the fishing ones, and there's the Fisherman, and just different ones when you start adding colors. You get the one with the clock in it. All the kind of fun stuff that, you know, all these little ones. Remember we talked about the little ones in the last episode about how these things were so versatile and you could see them everywhere for many years. Then you get the promotional ones. I mean, you can get them for every football team. Carrying cases, compasses, and again showing that looks like a Super Tinker to me. But anyway, so that's a catalog from, now of course everything's online. Additionally, you have this book, and I'm not going to do a full flip through of this, but this is a book that I got from like a Barnes & Noble or even maybe a secondhand store, slightly used. This is all about the Swiss Army knife, how it came about. It's a beautiful book. If you are a connoisseur of Victorinox or Wenger, which then combined with Victorinox, Swiss Army knives, this is definitely the thing to check out, buy, whatever. That is that. So, I don't know exactly the year I got this. This is the first Swiss Army knife I owned. This is a Super Tinker. I got this probably, let's say 1988 or 1989. I bought it from Hofrance, but I scratched their name out. But right there you can, that's where it said Hofrance on. So the brand had stamped, or not the brand, the store that sold it stamped the handle, and so, okay, well, again, I scratched it out, but it was Hofrance, which was a store at the Annapolis Mall in Annapolis, Maryland. Super Tinker, it was given that name because it had the Phillips screwdriver. A Tinker had no scissors. This one has scissors, and I believe the Tinker was everything else except the scissors. So, you know, you've got your basics with what I call these 2 screwdriver, bottle opener, can opener, blades, and then of course the other doing this without cutting myself, because I know that unlike the knives of my grandfather, I know I have sharpened these recently. There it says Officer Swiss here on the tang, and of course this is a true Victorinox. It says over there, and usually it would say Victorinox Switzerland stainless. I'll just pop that back in. Rostafari, whatever that word is at the bottom. I remember that had a meaning as well. And I've got the original toothpick. And, oh, where's the toothpick? I don't have the toothpick. I have the tweezers, but not the toothpick. The toothpick is probably somewhere. I don't know where it ended up at. I'm pretty sure I still have it. Spring has come out years ago. I mean, this is not got its spring. And it's got the reamer, punch, whatever you want to call it, and a lanyard. When it came to these Swiss Army knives, I didn't use the lanyard because I didn't feel it was really a good use of time. So, you know, it's got the wear and tear that you would expect from a knife like this. I was in high school when I got this. I can't remember. This might have gone to Canada when we took a trip to Canada, a band trip to Canada. This is long before 9/11, when you could get away with, where there was no searching of your person for what you might have on you. So this knife has been many places. I mean, not an airport or anything like that, but this has been many places which today it wouldn't even dare try to take it. This is the one that replaced it around 2003. That's when I got that catalog that I showed you earlier. This has got my name on it, because at that point you could start putting names on things. And so I got my name, Richo, and I bought this one off the internet. So this is a Deluxe Super Tinker. It has the same tools as the one before it, but now this one also has the hook, and it's got the pliers. And that's why I bought it. I bought it because I wanted those pliers. The hook was just an added benefit, but I really wanted the pliers because I thought there might be some uses for there. And there has been. I've used this pocket knife for a lot of stuff. You see that part of the handle's gone. This has had a lot of rough service. Like I said, I got this about 2003, and so that's about, 20 years, equal to the time that I was a furniture objects conservator. A lot of this grunge that it has on it, I got just recently in the last year. I did a lot of statue conservation and worked with a product called Acapox 5010, which is a two-part epoxy and is used for basically repairing statues, industrial things, and permanent. Very permanent, and I got that on this knife, and it's permanent. It didn't make it sticky, but it really wore on the finish. And so I thought about getting another one to replace it, but when it comes to these types of knives, you really don't want to replace them because they do the job that you want. They stay together. These blades have, I can tell you, this blade has been used for opening the Acapox container multiple times. All of these blades have been used for their intended purposes: wire stripper, the bottle opener, the can opener. I mean, all these things I have used so many times on so many projects. Oh boy, this is getting hard. This reamer is getting harder and harder to open because the 5010 and some of the other materials that I've worked with. I mean, we're talking about stuff for repairing glass chandeliers, furniture glue, just all kinds of stuff. I have used this for all types of things, and some of that's gotten in there and made it harder to open. It doesn't snap like it used to, but it's still just such a versatile, wonderful tool. So anyway, and I've got the tweezers and the toothpick on this one do survive. And gnarly condition, but I don't use it on my teeth, so I use it on a lot of other things. So now it's broken up here too. This break happened earlier in its life. This one happened last year, I think. So anyway, that's the Deluxe Super Tinker. And finally, this is the Swiss Champ. This was the largest Swiss Army knife for several years, a couple decades in fact, probably from the 80s through maybe the 90s. Of course, now they get them so they're huge. I mean, they're no longer something you can really keep in your pocket. It's more like something you just, I don't know. They're huge. So anyway, this is that old style one. So you've got, you know, the pen in the corkscrew with a little mini slotted screwdriver on it. It had also an additional pen. There was a pen. I mean, I don't know that this writes anymore, but, and I will tell you, this is another workplace thing. When I was working at a workplace, I found this, and so I turned it in, and no one ever claimed it. So they gave it back to me and said, well, why don't you have it? And so I've used it in conservation. I've used it. In fact, I carried this in my bag when I worked at Colonial Williamsburg. I carried this in my bag when I worked at Tryon Palace. This has been used on many things, and in many situations. It has the magnifying glass. It's kind of helpful for that. I'm not going to pull out every single tool. I have a picture here that shows all the tools pulled out. But in general, there are just so many wonderful tools on here. Now, of course, many of you have probably owned this or seen this. You know, I don't use the fish scaler, but again, it's part of it, so, you know, it's important to it. And I can't say I've used the rulers. I mean, when I need a ruler, I get a ruler. I don't usually use what's in, but occasionally, occasionally I do need to use it. Probably the thing in here I have used a few times is this. This is the saw blade. If you saw one of the other parts where I had a saw blade that we was on the Columbia knife had a saw blade that I couldn't. Yeah, this thing is sharp, and I would not. It does cut wood. I have cut wood with this. I can feel that it's sharp. I wouldn't mess with that thing. There is also a metal saw. I'm mistaking it for something else. This is the file. It's technically supposed to be a fingernail file on one side and a metal file on the other, and then right along the edge is actually a metal saw. And I have used it to cut a screw or two apart when I didn't have a hacksaw nearby. So it does work. It's an incredible tool for that type of application. Of course, it has the Phillips screwdriver. It's very helpful, along with those two other screwdriver bits. Can opener, bottle opener, as I mentioned before. And of course, underneath, you got your reamer, and you got your hook, and it has things like, okay, so they have this little mini slotted screwdriver. That's nice. I have to pull this out, get to this. This is the chisel. And I have used the chisel a few times. A few times I have been out in the field doing furniture conservation, and I needed a chisel. And I didn't have my chisels with me, and a knife just doesn't do the same job. So I have used it for that application. In conservation, believe it or not. But it does work, and it works well. So yeah, this is the Swiss Champ. You can tell it's been through a bit of work in its time. Some of that comes from me, and some of that, probably most of it, it looks like it's been in a fire or something. It looks like it's melted. That would be before I got it. And so some of these come with a story, and some you add to that story. This past weekend, I went to the Smoky Mountain Knife Works, which is located in Sevierville, Tennessee. Claims to be the world's largest knife show place, and I'm sure it is. I went there 20 years ago, or technically 23 years ago, back in 2000, when I came out to Tennessee, the Great Smoky Mountain area, just by myself. This is many years ago, and I loved it. It was beautiful. I had a lot of classic old knives, old pocket knives. It's a lot larger today, and I can tell you, on a good Saturday, it's a madhouse in there. Lots of people. It's about 3 or 4 levels of stuff, mainly pocket knives. There's a other things as well, axes, guns, just about anything and this crazy amount of taxidermy, including that elephant there. And just about anything else you can taxidermy. I'm not into taxidermy, hunting, all that stuff, but it's fine for those who are. I'm there for the pocket knives. They have such a crazy collection of old pocket knives, case knives, and their Swiss Army knife section is phenomenal. It's not a big section, but it's bigger than anywhere else I've been that has Swiss Army knives. They've got them in cases. They've got shelves and rows of just the pocket knife in a plastic container, and you can just buy it right off. It's it's not like unlocking a case if you want a tinker, a super tinker, or something like that. Right here we've got the Swiss Champ, which retailing for about $106. This is the Swiss Champs XXL, which is you can't see it in this shop, but it's about $300. It's got a lot of individual tools you can see there. You've got several screwdriver heads that can be plugged into screwdrivers, but wouldn't those get lost? I don't know. It seems like that's a lot of extra things. It also has those new wrench heads that you see on some of the modern ones. Here's another look at it. It's retailing about $393, and you can see back in the background some of the other newer, fancier Swiss Army knives. Here's the Evolution series. That have some really funky tools, including some compasses, clear rulers, just all kinds of interesting stuff. A lot going on at that Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Not a promotion. I'm just saying, if you've been there, there's a lot going on, and there certainly is. I'll be going there again. I live nearby. It's not far away, so I'll definitely be going back. And there's also some antique antique stores along that same highway that have pocket knives, old pocket knives for good money. $3, $4. I've never seen those kind of prices in the Annapolis area or Virginia or even North Carolina. But here in Tennessee, I guess there's just so much stuff they just want to get rid of it. There's some good prices for old stuff, so I'll definitely be checking that out. So there will be more videos on this type of content probably coming this summer. This won't be the last one, so stay tuned.